So, what is your job now at the foundation? What are you trying to achieve? You've got the currency. It's launched. There's a network.
Yeah.
What is your job? How on earth are you going to get this across the line? How are you going to develop this ecosystem and economy for the next 10 years?
Well, it is my first digital nation. So first term, just over 100 days into the job.
We
But
call you King Manny now. Are you a dictator? A
not at
monarch?
all. No, no, no. By the people, for the people, from the people. I'm the president is office hours. You can again. I don't take any compensation. I'm doing this frankly for the greater good, for the mission, right? And again, it doesn't suit me, and of course, I need to manage my day to day as well, which is why I've brought in a strong team. So really, consider me just more like a chairman role, where of course the first 100 days were very active, but now we've defined a strategy, which I can talk about. We brought in the leadership team. We hired a CEO who's one of the co-founders of MoonPay, an old friend of mine, a German execution operator. He's sort of whipping this organization into shape, I would say. Good goalkeeper, clean slate. Like Germans are the best goalkeeper nation in football, or soccer, as you call them. And of course, a lot of important people around him. And now we are fully in execution mode. And the priority number one is coming to the US. So Ton has avoided the US under Biden-Harris, and maybe that was overly conservative. But Independence Day is near, so around the 4th of July, you can expect what I would call a sort of decisive market entry. What does that mean? For US users, you might not know this, but within the Telegram app, there is basically a wallet for non-US users in the settings menu, and we're gonna basically lift the geo-block. It is currently geo-blocked and has been since inception for US users around the 4th of July. And Telegram, without stating so detailed numbers, but had over or just under 100 million downloads just in the US, just in iOS over the last 12 months, right? And as you might know, no one has actually won the messaging game proper in the US yet. There's tons of iMessage, tons of SMS. WhatsApp is big, but not as big as it is internationally. Yeah. And of course, there's Signal and Telegram. And so it's going to be really interesting. And then we, of course, are keen to list on all the relevant US spot exchanges, which is coming. I can't, of course, share too many details, but you can, of course, expect.
I mean, it's a big enough project. I mean, your FTV is very high. It's a big project. So
yeah, and of course, I mean, I would say it's of all the contenders for like $1 trillion protocols, and of course, Ton is by no means the only one. Quite. I mean, of course, there's. Bitcoin at 2 trillion, and Ethereum, I've peaked I think at 450 billion, and sort of had a bit of a speed bump. Hopefully, they're gonna reconnect with the identity, what capitalism looks like, and you can expect me as the Ton Foundation president to be, let's say, commercial as the history of my career as an investor. And of course, I've been deeply impressed by Solana. They have executed, really well. And of course, in Sui and Aptos, there's lots of activity there, right? But of course, in every chain is a superpower, right? And we're not trying to imitate or frankly, even sort of compete with other chains. We think we want to grow the pie, right? We want to bring in hundreds of millions of users, ultimately billions of users. The first billion is the hardest in my humble experience, right? So Telegram is not stopping. We're at 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, maybe more. That's the plan, right? And Pavel, of course, is the gloves are off. I mean, he's very, 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 very focused on this, right? And the key question we have is how do we basically convert the Telegram messaging user to a blockchain user at large, but of course specifically Ton. And of course, we can do things that other chains just can't do, right? From a UI UX perspective. And so forth. And Telegram there's 10 million businesses on Telegram who effectively run their business on Telegram. Most of them are small, some are not that small. So there's like platforms like the bot platform, the ads platform, the mini app platform. And we can sort of just align the incentives here that basically benefits the whole industry at large, but of course specifically with a focus on driving adoption for Toncoin.
What is the vision for Ton itself? What role does it play within the ecosystem? Is it the kind of infrastructure layer that things get built on top of and that generates the economic activity? Is it the loyalty layer? Is it the currency layer? What the fuck is it?
Well, I guess it's a bit like, the blind people touch an elephant, right? No, what I would say, if this is not the network state, but the network continent, if this is Satorica, the United States of Satorica, what Telegram is doing, right? It is basically freedom of speech, right? It is the free speech messaging platform that respects user privacy, and And of course, it's not a coincidence that, that's the First Amendment in the US Constitution, right? Now, what Ton does is basically providing the property rights layer, basically the economic layer, right? And the mission in one sentence is putting freedom into orbit, right? Whether that's freedom of speech or freedom to transact, voluntary exchange, free markets, and of course also banking the unbanked in the end, right? And freedom isn't free. The mission has to be financed, right? We also, of course, compensating Telegram for the exclusivity that Ton has with the messenger. And the point is putting freedom into orbit. I mean, it might sound a bit cheesy, but the difference of basically launching a rocket and reaching orbit. If you don't reach orbit, you come down. If you reach orbit, it stays there for 1,000 years, like forever, right? And I think this is, really important as a mission because, there's governments in authoritarian regimes that have other ideas, right? They want a central bank digital currency linked to a social credit score, linked to QR codes and digital IDs and sort of digital dystopia, right? And I'd much rather, I'm on team freedom, right? Much rather make sure that freedom prevails and the American idea is going to take us into the next, decades and centuries, and that's really what I'm here for, right? In terms of mission.
Yeah, but what do people use the Ton coin for?
Right, of course.
What is it going to be used for over time? What's right. In your head? Obviously, you hope to be directionally right. Whatever you think it's going to be, it's not going to be that because that's how things develop. But what's in your head?
I mean, the list of real world use cases, and I get this question a lot, and I was like, "What do you mean? Like, isn't it obvious?" Sort of is quite endless, right? I mean. For instance, of course, American users will know what Venmo is, right? You can Venmo each other. Like that basically works in Telegram today outside the US. It's coming to the US. You can just click your Telegram contact, press a button, and that person doesn't even need to have a wallet. You can still send him coins. And if they don't have a wallet yet, they just get a button, say click, and you deactivate a wallet and you get the coin, whether it's a Ton coin or a US dollar stable coin that runs on Ton, right? So, remittances is a, $1 trillion market, right? Payments, of course, is a lot bigger. And, what happened in China, basically, that every corner shop has a QR code, right, displayed, and you can just basically scan it and then transact, of course, online, but also offline. We talked about M-Pesa, right? There is a $1 trillion of what's called mobile money in the world. 80%, 800 billion of that sits in Africa, right? Again, and I think that will, as smartphone penetration in Africa rises and, Telegram is very popular. 80% of Telegram users sit in emerging and frontier markets. Of course, and they might want the dollar, right? They might not want the Ton coin. They can also own Bitcoin or other, in the custodial wallet, you can buy Sui as well in the Telegram wallet, right? We're the open network, right? We're trying to grow the pie for the whole industry. And then, of course, there's the wonderful world of, a sort of digital property rights, whether that's NFTs, gifts on Telegram we have got $3 million a day. It's not all on chain yet, granted, but, that's more than OpenSea. Like it's just Telegram gifts, right? Where you can, of course, who doesn't like gifts, right? Either gifting them or getting them, whether it's a Valentine's Day, a birthday, or Christmas, or whatever it is. And you can, put them on your profile now. And of course, some of them are rarer than others. And so that's a really interesting sort of real world use case. You've got, gaming, of course.
Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. Look, if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button and check out the video here on the right-hand side. I'm sure you'll enjoy that one as well. And if you're ready for more, go to realvision.com/join. I'll see you there.